I'll start off with introducing myself. So I'm Taylor Nicey. I'm an enrollment specialist at Algoma University. I work at the Brampton campus specifically. And
Oh, okay.
I work at my house right now, but I will be on.
Yeah, well, me too. Yeah.
And so I'm just meeting with different professors from different departments, getting to know you guys a bit, and really gearing this towards future students and what they would be interested in. So if we
Sounds
could
great.
start with you introducing yourself and your program and a little bit about you.
Okay. I'm Dr. Paul Dupuis. Everybody just calls me Paul. I have a PhD in psychology and forensic psychology. Currently also the department chair of the Department of Psychology here at Algoma University. Yeah, I've been working in the field. I probably should have figured this out before. I don't know, 15, 16 years, something like that. And I've been in Algoma for 12 or 13 years now. I think I'm in my 13th year. I teach a wide range of psychology courses, but forensics and criminal behavior are kind of my specialty areas, I guess you'd say, and a couple of my favorites. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, nice. And then, so you've been at Algoma for quite a while. That's amazing. And is there like any like little insight into what made you become an instructor in psychology and what led you to the position you're in now? So if you tell us a little bit about that, because I hear you've been a professor for quite a while, so that's amazing.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I kind of stumbled into academics in terms of becoming a professor. That was not my intent when I first went, and I went back to university as a mature student, by the way. So for those of you who might have been away for a while, don't hold that against yourselves. I went back at the age of 30 to restart an undergraduate degree in psychology. And I think that this, well, I don't think, I know the single biggest factor was a professor at St. Mary's University. I'm from Halifax originally, and I did my undergrad there. And when I restarted my education, I was taking psychology, and I took it was in my second year, I took a forensic psychology class from Veronica, and I loved the course, loved the content. She was energetic and interesting and interested, and all of those things that I hope I am as a professor.
Yeah.
And just being in her class and then getting to know her and becoming her honors student, and she was the one who, I'll say, forced me to apply to graduate schools, because I didn't think, I didn't know anything about them. My family, wasn't really didn't have that kind of educational background. So she was not only a supervisor, she became my mentor, and so that sort of single person that you might meet in your education is incredibly important. And for me, it was Veronica. And then there were all kinds of other great professors and great relationships, but she just really took interest in how far I could go, I guess, and made me do it. To be frank, as I was just going to go back and become a carpenter. I was being a carpenter before I went back to school. Yeah, so it's a bit of it's a non-traditional story.
Yeah.
You can meet that one person, professor or some sort of mentor that takes that interest and helps you, in that guidance. It makes a huge difference. At least I know it did for me, and I think I've done that for students at Algoma. I don't want to speak for them, but I'm pretty sure I have.
I think that's amazing. I always like when you can pinpoint it down to something, like for you, Veronica, and I'm sure so many students can say that about you as well, because there always are so many factors that go into the choices that you make. But when you can kind of say to yourself, like, oh, like if I didn't meet that one professor, if they didn't say that one thing, then I wouldn't be where I am now. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you've said that to Veronica, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know at Algoma too, like, because we are such a small university, the students get that opportunity to create those same relationships with their professors, and that like that is special, and like you're able to meet with the students and really connect with them and get to know them and give them that similar advice based on who they are and where you they
Yes.
would go.
Yeah, having that sort of, smaller, tight program between both the faculty and the students. I mean, that's what St. Mary's was it's a bigger school, but the program was larger than we have here, but not like a U of T or one of those giant schools. And yeah, getting to know Veronica and other professors on a more sort of, kind of professional level, and having them take an interest and having them guide you. That's something that I really like about Algoma as well, is I can sort of act in the way that I really enjoyed professors acting towards me. I know it's a two-way street, the students have to engage and be, open to that as well and motivated and whatnot. But if they are, it's a great opportunity.
You
It
being
really
East
is.
Coaster too, I
I
know you're
am.
known for being quite friendly. You must enjoy that part.
I do. Yeah, I play into the stereotype. I admit it.
That's okay. It's a
I can't
positive
help
one.
it. It really is a bit of a thing. Yeah, the sort of friendly maritimer. Yeah, the stereotypes come from somewhere.
Okay, awesome.
Case.
Moving on, do you have like a favorite class that you like to instruct throughout your years at Algoma? One that just stands out to you?
It's tough because I mean I really like teaching. I mean I mean my forensics classes and criminal behavior classes, I really enjoy those just because they've always been a core area of interest for me from the time I was an undergrad. So that's always enjoyable. But even courses like I haven't taught it for about 2 years now, and I sort of missing it. I usually teach the history of psychology, which is a fourth year course. And the reason I like teaching that course and courses like it is it's one of the courses when students first come into the course. No offense, they take it because it's a required course for the honors program. That's why they take it. And I asked them that, and that's
You're like, no secret on that.
the common response. And I kind of guarantee them at the beginning of the course that when I first start out, it could be a month, could be 6 weeks, and you'll be thinking, you know, yeah, it might be interesting, but why are we doing this? What's the point in history? I can learn how to do research and this and that, and then by the end of the course, everybody's come around and realized like, oh, now I get it, like the context and the perspective and all of the things coming together in different ways. So when you see that kind of not just as an individual student, but often for the entire class, they kind of reach that kind of eureka moment where they go, oh, now I get why you're so excited about this, because they often have no idea why I'm so excited about talking about Greeks and Romans dealing with psychological and philosophical thought. And then
Just funny.
after a while, they get it. So that's fun. But
It's a fourth year course, and they've probably been wondering that for 4 years. And they're finally like, aha.
yeah. And when the required courses, it's always like, oh no, it's a required course. That means it's going to be, boring and tedious and whatever. But yeah, it usually pans out pretty well. So I like that element.
Okay, amazing. Well, that gives all the students something to look forward to for their fourth year.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So students like you also, especially with degrees like psychology, I find there's like a really wide range of careers that you can go into. And it's always a question on students' minds and parents' minds as well. Like, and hearing from someone like yourself that is successful in the field, what type of careers do you think can come from this degree?
Yeah, one of the oddest things, I guess, at least when I talk to parents or students, one of the first things I say, and I'll say it first to you as well, is that most students who study psychology as an undergrad won't become a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I became a psychologist sort of. I just kept going. I didn't have anything better to do, for lack of a better reason. So I liked it, and I liked school, so I just kept going and eventually became a professor. But most students, they're looking to use psychology in whatever their career or discipline turns out to be, rather than being a psychologist. And I try to tell students like that's a key distinction. And some students want to become a clinician or a counselor or an academic like I am. And that's great, that's one avenue, but more and more because of, I guess, how diverse our workplaces are getting, um, they're taking psychology so that they can use what they learn, critical thinking skills, analysis skills, presenting skills, public speaking skills, like a whole range of things. So they're using the knowledge, but they're using the skills probably even more, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I teach, because I teach forensics and criminal behavior, I regularly have students who go into law, like they'll go to law school. Um, that might not be that common for psychology in general, but for me it is because of my discipline. Um, but also, I mean, everything, all types of medicine, whether, med school to nursing schools, the sort of whole range of kind of physiotherapy and other therapeutic options, like through what's it called, ORPAS, and those kinds of systems. Ontario Rehabilitation something system. Rehabilitation sciences, basically. Sorry, I'm terrible with acronyms.
No, it's okay.
I thought I could get it. I thought I had the acronym, but I can only get the key parts of it.
Got the most important word. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Speech language and speech language pathology in the last maybe, I don't know, even 5 to 10 years seems to become, I mean, a really important aspect in terms of our sort of, you can consider that part of the medical field in a strong way. And there's much more interest in those kind of fields in the recent times. Just, I think it's because people didn't realize what they were and that these were important and needed types of positions and therapists, and that there's education around that you can take very specifically from taking a psychology degree. Just that wide range. Yeah.
The world has really been geared towards accessibility, I think, and then that plays into it.
Yep, and all the social services and child services agencies and types of careers, you can get into those from. Oh, I hope you didn't hear that. My text just went off, and it's Chewbacca. So if you heard a weird roar, that was just my phone. Sorry, I forgot to turn the ringer off.
Okay.
Yes, so it's that diverse kind of area. A lot of it's sort of medical or quasi-medical or therapeutic or quasi-therapeutic still. But it's really about using the knowledge and applying the knowledge and the skills rather than becoming a psychologist.
So you'd say then for like a student who is considering this degree is typically like the type of person who is looking to what? Like, because it can go into so many different veins. But overall, you'd say what they have in common, like a student that was interested in this type of degree.
I think what they have in common, especially early on, is that they're interested in sort of, and this sort of sounds almost I don't know, corny, but like, why are people like they are? And that, it's but that's sort of the core of it, and that's what psychology deals with is, whether it's from the neural aspect or the social and cultural aspect is why do people behave the way they do? What are the influences and what are the commonalities? What are the differences? All of those kind of questions. And even though a lot of students, because they're not exactly quite sure what psychology is sometimes, because it is so broad and it has so many areas and so many avenues. So they're sometimes not quite sure what it's going to be. But they just know that they want to know, like, why people behave the way they do. And usually over a couple of years, then they start to figure out, like, well, I like dealing with children or with a more therapeutic population, or I want to go into like a something involving respite therapy. I've had a few students in that type of area. So it's that sort of common bond of just trying to figure out why people are up to what they're up to. And then as they learn more and they take a few more psych courses, that's when they kind of say, oh, I'm really interested in, the neural aspect of, maybe a pathology, or I'm interested in the social aspect and how people's self-esteem impacts their decision-making. And that's when they start to be more, I guess, aware of what kind of education or what kind of courses to take towards what kind of career I might like.
Right.
And so You know, and it's okay. I tell all students, it's okay not to really have a clear idea of where you're going directly because you don't know all the options yet. You know, so if you know, that's great. But if you don't know, there's lots of options. So why not, you know, take some courses and both in psych and in other areas, and you'll see combinations between lots of different areas. And then it'll give them more direction.
Yeah, I feel like that's an overall theme for so many people, is that just kind of go into a degree that you feel truly that you have interest in, and you just, it's going to take you in a direction you can't even pinpoint right now.
Exactly. Yeah. You might not know where you want to go. You just, in general, you might, but not specifically. But that's why you take different courses and experience different things, and then it gives you better insight.
Yeah, 100%. So, being an instructor at Algoma for some time now, do you have a reason why you really enjoy instructing at Algoma? Like anything that stands out to you of why you just like, yes, I'm a professor, I love to teach, but I love to teach at Algoma.
It really goes back, and it sort of harkens back to when I was an undergrad. Um, I got to know my professors, and they got to know me because the classes might have been a little larger where I went, but they weren't that much larger. You know, you could see everybody in your class. You could notice all their faces. It wasn't like a giant hall where you could just see a tiny little speck off in the corner and know that's a person, another student. And that's the main thing is if I get to know them and they get to know me, they're more comfortable discussing things. I mean, that's a big part of it. And, you know, I tend to go off on tangents sometimes when I'm lecturing in different areas. And if a student has a question that's a little off topic, you know, I might go there for 10 or 15 minutes sometimes, you know, and talk about things. Um, but it's when you get to know each other, that's when you can have a real good discussion about topics. So sometimes topics I talk about things like prejudices and those kinds of systemic things in my forensic and criminal courses. Um, and when people are more comfortable with me and I'm comfortable with them and we know each other kind of a little bit rather than just on the you know, person way up on the stage that you can barely see speaking into a microphone. I never use a microphone, even in the big classes here. I don't need it. I like that, and they talk to me like I'm a colleague, and I encourage that because if they don't, um, they're not going to ask the good questions that they really want to have answered. They're just going to sort of be like, "Oh, professor, you know, let me clarify this point that you espoused upon." No, that's not, you know, good for learning. You know, talk to me. You know, let's talk about the issues, and that's what you can get when you know people. That's the biggest thing. Yeah,
That is such an
by
interesting
far.
point. And
I love it.
yeah, and it's so true for a degree like psychology, because it's not just like mathematics, like you got numbers, there's a right and there's a wrong. Like
Yeah,
want to have this engaging discussion and open the floor to the students. And yeah, and you're so right, not every person is going to feel comfortable in a really large setting to bring up these life questions that you're supposed to be discussing and answering
yeah,
the best of best of anyone's ability or opinions.
yeah. I never claim to know all the right answers because in psychology we have estimations.
Yeah.
Right? We have you know, in general this happens or that happens, but I couldn't tell any, you know, specifically about you unless I knew you really well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, I can tell some generalities about you and how you would operate as a person, but in terms of specifics, right? We can't know it all. Right? It's not that. Yeah, you have to have a little bit of room for that kind of, I guess, whether it's a personality stance, so that you don't have to know everything as an absolute fact, because psychology, like many disciplines, is iterative. Like it changes over time, and what I might have taught 20 years ago, I would never teach now, right? Because we know more, we know better.
Yeah.
You know, so you can only teach your knowledge at the point that you're at, and then 5 years later, maybe I'll be like, oh, I've got to change that because that's not a good valid stance to take anymore in my discipline. And then that's another thing I love about psychology, and I love imparting to the students, is that you shouldn't get bored because it'll change.
Yeah, just constantly changing. And I guess you too as a professor, like bringing in current events and current topics and stuff like that in
Mhm.
your classroom as well.
Yeah. I don't think I'd be able to do it if I just was always talking about the same thing year after
Mhm.
year. Like it's the same topic, same issues, but the data, the information, the what we know about it changes and gets added to and gets combined with other disciplines or whatever. And that really makes it interesting to me, and I think usually to the students.
Yeah, I definitely agree. How have you found teaching virtually? Has it been like a bit of adjustment?
It's been a bit, and again, because I'm a people person in the,
Mhm.
I think in the truest sense, I really like being around people. It's, I don't think it'll ever be my favorite, to be perfectly honest. I think it works. I think you can get a quality education this way, but from a personal perspective, from who I am and how I like to operate, it's just, it's just not the same for me.
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism. It's just it's not the same. I can't, but although I think when I have live sessions, I call them sort of classes, um, that are not. I don't do all my lectures on in live context because I personally, for me, I don't think that works well. So I do record lectures and I record a lot of material and put material up on. I use the Moodle sites. And I have live sessions at least once a week for like an hour or so, just to talk to the students and to not even lecture. It's just like, okay, if here's something we talked about, well, here's some more specific information that you don't need to know for a test or anything. This is just more specific, and it's going to tie this into that we talked about 5 weeks ago, and it'll tie it forward into something we'll talk about in 4 weeks, and it'll tie into something about your life. So I use it for that kind of contextual element, not lecturing, not giving information for the sake of giving information. Um, and that I really like because the students, I'm getting used to using chat and like,
Yeah.
because if there's 60 students in the meeting, they can't all unmute and speak. It doesn't work well. It's hard to notice, or like a list of 60 students and their hands up. So they'll just use and they're so adept at it. They use the chat. I'm not as adept for. I won't go ageist on anybody, but yeah, it's because I use social media, but not to the same extent. But once I figured out a little bit more about how to use Zoom and some of the features like the chats and the hands up and all those kind of things, it's become much more spontaneous.
Mhm.
I think as I got better with it, and as the students got comfortable with me and they're used to using that kind of technology, so it got better. It got more of the interaction that I like to have. Um, but still, I can't see them, cringe at my bad jokes, right? So that's so or sometimes some of them laugh, and I tell my students I don't care if it's a pity laugh as long as you're laughing.
I
So
definitely
that kind of
agree.
interaction is so I'll have students put, and sometimes they'll put up acronyms and I have no idea what it means. So I'm not afraid. I'm like, I have no idea what that means, and they'll tell me.
Yeah.
Like
Learning
a
curves. Yeah.
student typed in goat recently, and I was like, I'm sure if you're calling me
Greatest
a
of all
goat,
time.
I didn't know what it meant, right? So I said, I assume it's some sort of compliment. I won't take any offense to it. And then they wrote, no, it means greatest of all time. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks.
That
I have
is
no
an
idea what
amazing
goat means.
compliment.
So, so that's kind of fun actually. I'm learning things like that kind of communication that I don't do a whole lot of, I guess.
Yeah.
The online acronym.
Soon next semester you'll be bringing in like Kahoot quizzes and like you'll be using all the online tools you can. Yeah.
I'll have to ask my daughter if she's in high school and they do quizzes all the time in some of her classes. So I'm going to ask her more about it because she knows way
Yeah.
more about it than I do.
That sounds good. That sounds good. So to end off this little interview, I like to ask the professors how you bring the thunder, aka what makes your programs, your classes that you teach at Algoma special. I mean, you've gone into some really great points already. So
I
it's fine
think
if you
it
want to
really
reiterate.
is just, I guess I'll have to a little bit. I think how I bring the thunder is well, first of all, and I've been told this by, he wasn't complaining. Another faculty member, when I was teaching a history of psych class, and another history professor's office was just down the hall, and I hadn't closed the door, and I speak loudly. And I speak loudly in class. And after class, I left, and he came up and said, "Wow, that was a great class." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I could hear everything." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean." He goes, "No, I left my door open because I thought it was interesting how you were talking about history and putting that context and perspective in." So I think I bring the thunder sometimes literally by the loudness of my voice, and occasionally people will come by and close my door on my classroom while I'm lecturing. I'm like, "Oh, sorry," because it's echoing down the hall. But I just get excited. I like teaching, and I like the information. I think it's cool.
Yeah, your passion shows through.
And I think sometimes, and especially students who get to know me, like, and I know this this happened in one class. It was an upper year class, and students that I knew well, and they know that if they bring up certain topics that I really like, that I'll go on and start talking about them. And they would do it just to see how often they could distract me from the content of the course.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it wasn't, they weren't doing it maliciously. They were doing it because it was just, watch Paul go. If you bring this up, he'll get like crazy. He'll either get angry or excited, and they'll tell other students who haven't had me too much, "Well, watch this," and then just bring up a topic. And then sometimes it'll take me minutes to catch on. It's like, "Oh, come on, guys,
But an animated professor is so much more engaging and interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
It's being
I also discovered, and again, it's a student that I got to know really well. She became an honor student. She would text to a group of students during class when I said sort of really excited, weird kind of phrases. So they had a whole thing where they were like texting Paul quotes. Which again, it wasn't malicious. It was they're doing it because it was like, "Oh man, he is going off on whatever topic." Like, so they love it when I got excited like that. And so those were examples whereas after I found out, they were like, "Hey, this look at this." I was like, "What? Paying attention to what I'm saying and actually telling it to other people, other students?" I'm like, I'm okay with that.
You're like, "I'm not gonna be mad at that."
No, not at all. They were doing it out of like real happiness, and I guess joy or whatever. They thought it was fantastic. It was a big part of why they took my classes, I guess, even if they were classes they had to take. So yeah, I guess that's it. Just a big loudmouth. So sometimes
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds like, yeah, you bring the thunder literally and figuratively to your classes.
Yeah, and occasionally, my wife says I'll bring the thunder in the house too, and just start going off on something. And she goes, yeah, you don't have to lecture us, okay? We're not your students. My personality.
It sounds like your classes are really fun to take. Maybe I'll have to take a few.
I hope so. I think so.
Yeah, and it's important to have professors like you that are going to bring that fun, especially when it's become more virtual, because like you had mentioned, it's not the same. And you need to have that personality on the screen to really grab the students' attention. So that sounds amazing.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the Algoma University Professor Spotlight. It was really nice.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah. And yeah, I hope you have the best rest of your day, and I'll let you know when this is up and posted.